episode 1 of season 2, and we are in conversation with Milan. Milan draws 20 years experience. Hopefully, I'm doing the right intro here. Am I on track?
Yes, you are,
There?
Rhonda.
Okay, good. Um, so, Milan draws 20 years of contact experience from American Express, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and lots of sales management experience as well. Strives to improve his company's hiring, onboarding, training, and employee engagement practices through the Predictive Index. Milan holds several certifications with the Predictive Index and Stanford University School of Medicine for Human Behaviors and Psychology for High Performance. Milan is an avid cyclist, coach, and storm chaser. Tell me just a little bit more about that avid cyclist, coach, and storm chaser thing, if you would.
Yeah, Rhonda. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with TransData and with you. Rhonda, I've known you for years, so it's like having a conversation with a friend because that's what it is. So to answer all three of those, I really got into cycling during the pandemic and have really taken that on and really enjoy that. In the warmer months, I'm in Wisconsin, so I only have a few months a year that I can do it. I'm also a certified financial coach, and I've coached football and other sports. So I just like coaching kids and adults alike. And then the last piece is I actually went to school for atmospheric and oceanic sciences at University of Wisconsin. And then while I was in college, took a job in a contact center and never looked back. That was it. But I still chase storms in my free time, and it's a lot of fun. I still enjoy it, still passionate about it, but love the contact center industry.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I feel similarly. It's a great business to be in. I'm Rhonda Rutstein, representing TransData today, working here with Milan on this great podcast that we're bringing to you. Two things that I'm super passionate about in this business. One is working with companies all around the globe and learning about what they do. And the second part is bringing opportunities to people also around the globe that support all the companies that we have as clients. So it's fascinating learning about different cultures. Like I said, bring opportunities to other areas in the world, and spreading out the opportunities and finding great talent, literally, at all points on the earth, which is pretty cool. I've been in the business for about 15 years. I work on inbound customer support programs, outbound sales and lead generation. I have strong understanding of automation and technology. I'm super interested and engaged in building relationships and doing consultative sales, and try my best to have a strong understanding of operations and the key elements of success delivering on behalf of our clients. So let's just jump right into some of the questions that we have for you today, Milan. One of the things that we have been talking a lot about in the space in general is staffing, recruiting, and engagement. So I'll just take those three highlights and see where you want to start, but probably just, recruiting that talent and keeping them engaged is a key factor, right?
It is, absolutely. And I think it all, in order to keep an employee engaged, it's really utilizing the platinum rule. The golden rule, I was raised to live by the golden rule, to treat others how I want to be treated. But I think at this point, we should be able to take it a step further and utilize the platinum rule, which is to treat other people how they want to be treated. So really, to have an engaged employee, in order to improve retention, to have a productive, effective, happy employee, you really need to treat them how they want to be treated. Because Rhonda, the way, if we live by the golden rule, the way I want to be treated may not be the way that you want to be treated. And that would be unfair to you. Because you're like, why is Milan treating me this way? I'd rather be treated a different way. So it's really utilizing that platinum rule, and we'll get into culture now, but it really stems from and comes from having the right and building the right type of culture within the organization.
That makes perfect sense. So there's two parts of culture, right? There's the culture you can build from scratch from the beginning, but then there's
Right.
also culture if you already have an established culture, which probably most of these people out here listening to us have because they've been in business, and you want to make some shifts. Do you have any recommendations on how you can shift culture?
How you can shift culture? Well, it's not easy, but nothing in life worth it is easy, right? I would say in order to shift culture, even build out culture, I always go back to what I call the 3 C's. And I think the first one is having and utilizing, exhibiting core values within the organization, even with the team. Each team within an organization is runs a mix. So I'll tell a story about what the company is, why the company exists, what goals, the vision, being able to do that and having core values to back it up, and then aligning the way the contact center or the organization is run around those core values can really help a company transition or change, shift. I think it was the word you used, shift their culture. So telling a story through the core values, or having here at our company, AW Companies, we have legend stories. So we have 7 core values, and then we have every day we're trying to live out those 7 core values. So we have these legend stories around our core values. The second one is communication. I think it's impossible to over communicate. I know get time of core values or hearing about the company, but I think it's better to over communicate than to fail or lack communication within the organization. And then the third piece is having compassion or empathy, and going back to the platinum rule, treating people how they want to be treated. I think by utilizing the core values, communication, and compassion, you can shift the culture of the organization to what you want it to be or what it needs to be in order for employees to be happy and fulfilled at the organization.
Super. That's very intuitive and informative. And I firmly agree. It was a great learning experience for me as well in a management role when I learned about different types of personalities I was working with, and then how to best encourage their best work, understanding what makes them tick, because we all don't fall into the same categories in terms of our personalities. Right. Everyone knows from Myers-Briggs and DISC profiles and everything else, there's a lot of different types of people out there. And it's very rewarding as a leader as well to be able to work with people in the way that they want to be worked with. So I really appreciate that. So
definitely,
I mean, it's kind of stating the obvious, but we talk about how culture impacts the overall effectiveness of the organization, right? So obviously a good culture is going to translate into good services and good support on behalf of, in the outsourcing space, obviously the clients that we're working on. Anything you want to elaborate on that in terms of how it spills over into delivery?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point, Rhonda. Yeah, I mean, it absolutely does spill over into delivery. When I think back, typically the better performing or stronger agents that I would have on programs that I was managing, typically those more effective or productive agents were the ones that were happier, the ones that were being treated the way they wanted to be treated, the ones that really understood the job, were bought into the culture of the organization, were bought into the way the center was managed and everything like that. It definitely poured over or overflowed into the way they delivered service to customers because they were happy. And so what we noticed, and we still notice today, is that our highest performing agents are typically the ones that are happiest or most aligned with the culture or aligned with the mission of what we're trying to accomplish.
So that brings me to a question that's coming to mind. So is there a way to identify that before you even bring them on? Because we know the cost of a bad hire is super high, right? And we also know talent is difficult to find. So how do you balance that all out? Because we don't want a bad hire, but we're also struggling to find good people. So are there any insights you can give us on learning if someone's going to be aligned before we even bring them on?
Yeah, great question. So you can't, what is it? You can't manage what you don't measure. So being able to measure an employee's, behavioral alignment or behavioral profile, we utilize predictive index. As you read in my bio, I'm certified in that, so I can speak confidently to that because I know about it. Um, and there's so many different tools out there, but specifically for when we're talking about how people behave at work, everyone has motivating drives, and if you can measure their motivating drives, that will then predict their needs, and based on their needs we'll see their behaviors. So if you want to see a certain type of behavior, you have to manage them based on their needs. So being able to identify, okay, is this person behaviorally aligned for the job that they're applying for? Okay, checks the first box. And then there's also a cognitive piece. So cognitively, can the person learn the job, they retain the information, and how quickly can they learn? And are they able to adapt to change? So when you measure that right off the bat, you'll be able to tell, okay, will this person be a good hire, a bad hire? And I mean, it's not accurate 100% of the time, but high 90s. So like you said, each mishire or bad hire
Right.
is it costs a lot of money. And what I always tell people is everyone's perfect just the way they are. It's just a matter of, is this person the right fit for this type of role? Based on my natural behaviors and who I am, I would not be successful at an inbound customer service type of role because some of my needs are, I need variety, I need pressure, and I'm not good with the methodical. I'm good with something like this where I'm just waiting for the next question so I can think it through.
Right. I got it. I got it. That makes perfect sense. And occasionally I'll see somebody that falls off the predictable situation or is
Mhm.
very successful in an area that you wouldn't predict that to be the case. I also find being coachable at the end of the day is a key factor, right? So are they
Yes.
coachable? Can you coach them? But of course, fitting a square peg into a round hole in the long term is not going to be an engaged or happy worker either. So all things to
Right.
keep in mind. Yeah. And so another thing
Definitely.
I've noticed, yeah. So what about the different buckets of age groups, right? So I know that the 20 to 30 age group brings something to the table, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60. And I like a blend in a contact center because I feel like each
Mhm.
sort of decade brings a different uh, attitude, learnings, expertise to the whole team. But is there anything in particular you've observed about the, say, 20 somethings versus the 50 somethings?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. How much time do we have for me to answer that one? um, so every generation has, well, what I found is every generation has different things that motivate them. The culture has changed outside of work, where people that are, say, baby boomers, were really driven by stability, steady paycheck. They were the type of people that would get a job out of high school or out of college and stay at that company for 40 years and then retire. Um, Nowadays, millennials, Gen Z, are more driven on purpose of the company and the culture of the company and how is the company giving back to the community. Um, Looking at the core values of the company. Is the company progressive? Is the company, why does the company exist? How is the company helping others? And is it a good place to work? Based on the individuals, the employees, you know, internal being, do they feel comfortable and happy at that type of company? So nowadays, we see people changing jobs every year or two, where back in the day, don't want to make myself sound older than I am, but back in the day, if you change jobs every couple years, you were a job hopper. And nowadays, it's
Right.
more of the norm. People want to have different experiences, they want to try new things, and they want to be aligned with companies that have a purpose for why they exist. In the 90s and the baby boomer generation, it wasn't really, I don't think there was many people being interviewed that were asking the questions of, what's your vision, what's your mission statement, how are you giving back to the community? It was, all right, you're a stable company, you're going to give me a paycheck every 2 weeks, I'm going to
Right.
be here until I'm in my mid 60s, and then I'm going to retire. um, so now younger generations, it's more of the why behind the company, the purpose of the company, why does the company exist, what is the company doing for the community. and how can that person fit in and help push that company forward. And then if they find it's not a good fit after a while, then they have no problem, finding a new role and a new company that's more aligned with them.
Yeah, so it's a very good point, and I find myself asking that question too of companies, right? And I see people that are looking at outsourcers, the clients themselves also asking those questions, right? So it's important as a company in this culture today to be giving back one way or another to the communities that they're in, or to be philanthropic in some ways, and to embrace what some of the more important things are, whether it's environmentally sound practices and practicing diversity and things like that. I'm going to kind of skip back to the beginning in terms of recruiting talent. So what can you do to stand out in the marketplace, and or any tips on recruiting talent today? It's just so hard to find good people, and of course retain them as well. So besides what we talked about, really honoring them as people and making them really enjoy their job and want to come to work every day. What else can you share with us and tips on recruiting and retaining talent?
Yeah, so on the recruiting side, I would say being proactive and quick. So there's two different keys there. So a lot of companies will do what we call post and pray. They will post an ad on, say, Indeed or ZipRecruiter or another job board, and then they'll pray a decent candidate applies, and they'll just sit there and wait until that candidate comes through. That magic person applies. But especially in the current recruiting and hiring environment, you must be proactive. Seeking out the talent, searching for the people, LinkedIn, utilizing social, especially with the younger generations, utilizing social media, definitely LinkedIn, utilizing the search functionalities on a lot of the job boards, and proactively trying to find the talent before they apply. You have to be proactive. And then the second piece of that is you have to be fast. There's so many companies, that are still trying to do well, let's start off with a phone interview, and then let's wait a week, and then let's invite you in for another interview, and let's wait a week, then the person's already gone. They've had 5 job offers from 5 other companies while you were thinking about, okay, what's the next step? Let's set up another interview with them and another interview. And I mean, unless it's a high level position, if we're speaking specifically to entry level, say contact center agents, you have to move fast. You have to move quickly because there's so many opportunities out there for them. If it's higher level, I understand, working through the process. But you want to, what a lot of people and a lot of employees will correlate the interview process to is, okay, is this how it's going to be working for this company? Is it going to, is change going to happen slowly? If I need help, is it going to be slow like this? How's my onboarding going to be? Where if they're looking for a job and they need a job today, they're going to go with, okay, this company called me back, and wow, how fast they were and how they treated me during the interview process. So making sure you have a good recruitment process, you're proactive, you're quick, and being able to treat all candidates well, not just the ones you're interested in. Even the ones that you need to reject, treat them well as well, because as well, people are 7 times more likely to have a poor experience than a positive one. So that's around the recruitment and hiring. And then retaining employee, I always joke about companies used to think foosball tables and pool tables and beer were employee engagement tools, and really that is not employee engagement. But I would say to retaining employees, besides, like we already talked about, treating them the way they need and want to be treated, just utilizing different tools and, adjusting your management style in order to make sure it's a good fit, and being able to retain employees and I know if there's BPOs watching, we all try this, but fair wages and, appropriate wages and everything like that. And giving people opportunities for growth and giving people opportunities to let their voice be heard. So I've seen a lot of contact centers. Our own does this, where we have different committees that people can be involved with that really can change the direction of different parts of our organization. And because of, people feel more bought in to the organization because they come up with an idea and their voice is being heard. Even if their idea isn't chosen, they're given the opportunity to be heard versus I'm just another agent taking calls, clock in, clock out, and then that's it. So being able to have your agent's voices heard, I think is vital to that retention piece, that component.
Seems like we're having just a little bit of technical difficulty, so I hope that's not interrupting the enjoyment of our listeners. So another question I have is, we talked about age differences and generational differences. Obviously, the United States is full of different cultures, as are a lot of the outsourcing groups that are out there right now are employing different countries to support their customer service. Do you see any impact of culture, people's, where they either came from and they're now living here in the U.S. or outsourcing to nearshore or offshore? Is there any cultural impacts as well in the management process that you can think of?
Definitely. I mean, and there's so many different cultures out there. To speak to specific ones wouldn't do it justice, but we always believe that the whole person shows up at work. So you can interview based on, and you can assess them based on their skill set, their previous experience, behaviorally, cognitively. You can measure all of that. But what we need to remember is that the whole person shows up at work. So not only the things that I've mentioned, skills, experience, all of that, but then also the person's values, their culture, all of that needs to be taken into consideration because that's how they're going to show up at work. That's how they're going to act at work, and the type of work that they'll enjoy, part of their culture has an impact on that. So I mean, really, I think when it comes to culture here in the U.S., like you said, Rhonda, there's so many different cultures within the same geographic area. That's just being aware of what the needs are of individuals of each specific culture in order to keep them happy and make sure that it's a good fit for them, a good experience for them based on their own beliefs, morals, values, their own culture outside of work.
So what happens when you've got like the stakeholders, C-level team, not totally bought into the whole culture situation? So, we know, right, that taking care of our people might take a little extra effort, may cost a few extra dollars to do the right screening process and so on, but we know the value of that long term. How do you get the buy-in from some of the stakeholders or C-level team that may not totally buy in, or maybe yes you to death, but then at the end of the day aren't really supporting that journey?
Oh man, that's a great question. If anyone watching has the secret sauce to that, let us know. What I've seen work in the past is if you can quantify it. So a lot of times, being able to quantify, like you said earlier, the cost of a poor hire or mishire can be a lot of money. So if you're able to quantify how much those hiring practices are costing the company, I think folks at the C level are more apt to listen, because then they're seeing how many dollars are just going out the window every day, every week, every month, every year. So really being able to quantify it for them, I think helps initiate change. That's where I've seen it the most, is when it's quantified and they see, oh my gosh, I'm, based on attrition, I'm spending $2 million a year on attrition, when I could be, spending a whole lot less than that on attrition and having to rehire. And there's so many, a lot of people are like, well, why does it cost so much for a mishire? You have to take everything into consideration, from how much does it cost to now place the ad. It's the recruiter's time that you're paying for. Then once you go through the whole interview process, you hire somebody, you have the trainer's time. Now they have to train someone new because of attrition, not because of growth. And then from there, the onboarding and just all of that. I've heard U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics a couple years ago said that the average mishire or average cost of a mishire in the U.S. for an entry level a contact center agent is about a third of their annual salary. So if somebody's making, say, $20 an hour, say $40,000 a year, that mishire is going to cost you $12 or $13,000 when you factor in all the costs. Now, if you have a 200 seat center that's losing 50% per year, and you're losing 100 people at 12 grand a pop, was that $1.2 million in attrition?
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, my VP of operations and I, side by side, tried to figure out the cost of a bad hire.
Okay.
And we both came up with the exact same number.
Okay.
Even though we were in our own separate cubes doing the idea. And we both came up with $15,000. And so when you do quantify it that way and you see what the cost of a bad hire is, that's a great way to say to the C-level team, hey, if we invest in these tools for better assessments and better employee engagement, we're going to spend $250,000 or whatever, $500,000, but that's going to save us another $1.5 million. But until you can actually quantify it. One last question before we go, because we're almost out of time here. Sure. What about referrals? Do you have any referral programs? Do you have a lot of family members, friends and family that come on board and work with you as well?
Yes. So we have referral programs with our employees. If they refer other people over to us and we hire them, then they receive compensation, so referral bonus, even outside. So in addition to being a BPO and certified partner of Predictive Index, we also do staffing and recruitment. So even if somebody gets referred over to us outside of our contact center for a position we're recruiting for one of our recruitment clients, we pay referral bonuses and compensate them accordingly. Ever since we started that, it's worked out really well, because typically people that are doing their job, they refer somebody in, and usually, they're talking it up. A lot of times they're similar to the person they're referring in, not every time, but probably most of the time. And so then typically it's like we just almost clone that person, because now we have another great person we can hire and bring on board. And
we've got a little bit of a delay there. But we actually are running out of time anyway, so sorry about that, Milan. You got a little delayed, so I started talking over you, and we are almost at the end of our time here.
Okay.
So we want to thank both you, and you and I obviously could talk about all this stuff all day long. So we want to thank you for joining us and bringing your industry insights to the table. And we want to also thank everyone for watching TransData's Tech Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. We'll be here again next Friday, and we hope everyone has a great weekend.
Great. Thanks, you, Rhonda.
Mel. Yeah, my pleasure. Okay, talk soon. Bye.